Hey, this is Jim Hirschauer, and I've got Prashant, who is a co-founder of Devtron, with me. Today, we're going to talk about governance and policies. So, for every single company on the planet, governance is a really important thing when it comes to software delivery. Even in companies where it's not a highly regulated environment, policies are really important, but policies can become cumbersome and become a roadblock. So, Prashant, how can companies implement policies without slowing down their developers and putting more roadblocks in front of them?
So I think that's the right way to look at it, right? So how do we set up policies so that we don't become a roadblock for the developers? And again, the point that you earlier mentioned about this being primary concern for the regulated industries, right? I think you're right in saying that that's not how we should look at it. We should be looking at it as empowering developers. How can policy help us collaborate better? That's the angle that we should be looking at. Your regulation, your more visibility is a byproduct of it. Why is that? Because what happens is there are different teams which are working together to make things happen, and not all of them have expertise on everything. There may be a team which is great on infrastructure, there may be a team which is great on security, there may be a team which is great on development. Now, one of the ways to structure it is saying that, oh, you are an infra team, you would have access to the infra and you can do whatever you want, and nobody else would have access to it. It's your baby. Similarly, you can do it for the security team, and you can same way you can do it for the development team. But the problem with that is that now you have started creating silos. There are teams which are operating within themselves. Other teams don't have visibility to it. When they do something, it breaks. Even if they have certain level of visibility for every small thing, they have to go back to the team and ask them to make certain changes, or even to find some information which can help them figure out where actual issue is. But with policy, this is where you can actually break down the walls. Even if it's one big thing, you can say, oh, out of this one big thing, this portion is something where it makes more sense for the application team to own. For example, which port the application should be running on, right? It may make sense for application team to decide that. Whereas what is the ingress which can be used to connect may make sense for infrastructure team to decide, right? Or infrastructure team may even say that, okay, what is the RAM on the CPU within which development team can set things, right? For the security team, they might be deciding like which CVs they are okay with, which CVs they are not okay with. And the development team should also know what security team is deciding and where they can go and fix the things if they want to fix. So the idea of the policy is to say, how can I help people collaborate together better by allowing them to modify the things which they are most concerned with, but at the same point of time have access and visibility to the things which gonna impact them, right? So that is the right way to look at the policy framework, right? Another example, for example, from the policy perspective, may be saying that, oh, I have a build pipeline, right? The standardization build that you talked about. Now, you may want to create policies to standardize the pipeline, saying that, for example, you may need vulnerability scanning tool, you may need a static code analysis tool. Great. But what about, for example, the testing tool? As a QA team, I may want to experiment with different testing tools. Now, what's gonna be? Are you gonna make it a black box where if I have to experiment with a new QA tool, I have to come to you, or if I have to set some configurations, I have to come back to you? Not gonna work, right? Neither for the DevOps team nor for the QA team. The other way may be, or give QA team complete access. Great, they don't have an intent issue, but what if they end up actually removing some plugin which was mandatory by accident, or changing its configuration by accident? What's going to happen, right? That's where again the policy can be a beautiful thing, right? Wherein you are saying that if you have to create a pipeline, these are the minimum plugins that you need to have, and whether you can modify or not modify those plugins. Now, beyond those plugins, if you want to add something new because you're experimenting with something new, it's just fine because you are adding on to it to sort of experiment with your tools, and you have access to modify those tools because you own them, right? So different teams are able to collaborate together because you have the right policies in place with the right granularity. Of course, your tools should be able to support it. And this is one of the problems that I see with most of the tools which exist today. They look at policy as a regulation mechanism, as a governance mechanism, rather than a collaboration mechanism, right? And that is where the point that you raised comes in, where developers feel like, oh, we have been boxed, right? We have an impedance because we are stopped. I want to make some change, which I should be owning config map. I should be owning the config maps because I know the properties of the application. But why do I have to go to the DevOps team to get that modified? Because DevOps team has said that you can't do it, right? So I think that is something which is very, very important, where we need a fundamental shift in the way that we think about policies rather than just thinking of it as a regulation system. And please understand, I'm saying they should definitely be used for regulating, because legally or from the regulatory side, you may be required to do certain things and not do certain things. So they are definitely a great tool for the regulation. But we need to take another step if we want to really evolve in the software delivery lifecycle, where we have to say that how can this be the effective collaboration tool and not just a restrictive system for different stakeholders in the system.
All right. Thanks, Prashant. So if you want to take your policy game to the next level, you should probably come to devtron.ai, check us out, do a demo request, fill in the form, and we'd love to talk to you about how to go ahead and make that happen.